Okay, today we're going to get real, and it may be hard to hear at first, I know it was for me, but stick with me, and as long as you have a positive mindset, we'll get through this together, and you will be able to start charging what you are worth, what you need to run a successful and sustainable photography business. Alright, so a couple of things before we get started. You have to have the right mindset going into this. If you are just starting out, that's fine. You may need some practice, you may need to do model calls, you may need to improve your photography before you feel comfortable charging what you need to charge, and that's totally acceptable. The great thing about this business is that it's your business. You get to choose how you want to run it. You get to choose what you want to charge. You get to choose the business model that you follow, because in photography there are tons of business models to follow. I started off as a shoot and burn, and I started off doing $95 a session for 20 digitals on a CD. Here you go. I quickly found out that I was spending time away from my family. I was busy, but busy does not always mean success. I was putting so much into photography that I was not a good mom. At the time I was working full-time as a teacher. I was not a good teacher. I wasn't a good photographer because I didn't have the time that I needed because I was too busy as a photographer. So I raised my prices a little bit. I went up to $150. And that worked for me for a little bit, not even 6 months, and then I decided to gradually go up a little more. And I finally, for a few years, settled around, $300 to $400 depending on what type of session. I didn't give as many digitals away. I was doing 10 to 15 depending on the session. So that worked for me for a little bit. And then in 2015, I decided to make a go of it and really go all in. And I resigned from teaching. So I had to make it work. I went to a fabulous workshop. It's called the Soar Workshop, and it's actually hosted here in Texas, so I will try to post a link to that down in the comments so that if you're interested you can check that out. It is strictly a business workshop that kind of gave me the confidence I needed to go into IPS. If you don't know, IPS stands for in-person sales. It doesn't mean you don't sell digitals. I know that's kind of a misconception a lot of people have. I sell digitals all the time. In fact, I'm in the process of kind of changing up my business model right now. I've been doing IPS for about a year, and my average sales are $1,500. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, but $1,500 is kind of the package that 90% of my clients go to. However, I redid my cost of doing business after opening my studio a year ago and realized that that was not enough for me. So I need to average somewhere around $2,500 and $3,000 per session per client to cover my cost of doing business. And is that scary? You better believe it. It is so scary for me, even though I've been doing this for a long time. But I know that if I want to keep this studio, if I want to stay in business, I have to charge these prices. There is no exception to that rule. If I'm not making what I need to make, then I need to go find another job or go back to teaching. Which I don't want to do because I love photography. And I know all of you love doing photography or you wouldn't be watching this. So, it's scary. So, get your mindset right now that yes, it's scary. You're going to be scared. But the best things come when we conquer that fear. And once you do it, you know what? It's not scary anymore. So, work through me, stay with me. Let's get through this. I'll support you, you support me. Let's all cheer each other on, and let's find out what it takes to run our business. All right, so what is your cost of doing business? Cost of doing business is any money that you spend either in or on your business. This includes everything from office supplies, props, your gas that you spend going to and from sessions if you do that. Anything that you spend going toward your business. Your salary, that's a big one that a lot of people forget. What do you want to make as a photographer? If you were doing a job somewhere else, if you were working for someone else, you would expect to get paid. Photography is the same. Pay yourself money. Otherwise, you're just putting into something and getting nothing in return. So make sure your salary is included in that. How much do you want to make? A lot of people get scared when they run the numbers, and you will run those in just a minute. And once you sit down and really realize that what your cost of doing business is probably a lot higher than you think it is. But once you nail that down and you know, then it takes all the emotion and feelings out. You can know what you need to charge in order to be a sustainable, successful business, and there's no emotion. You trust the numbers. So we'll take a look at our sheet in just a minute and we'll start breaking that down. Okay, CODB, cost of doing business. So now you have your camera, you've been practicing, you're ready to start charging clients. Before you can actually price your service, or maybe you decide you want to offer prints or albums or however you decide to run your business, before you can actually charge, you have to know how much it costs you to provide either the product or the service. So your cost of doing business is the amount of money you spend whether you have any photography jobs or not. That means there are going to be days when you physically have your camera in your hand and you are taking portraits of people or things or whatever. But there are going to be more days where you don't actually have a camera in your hand. And even on those days, you still have cost of doing your business, whether you be editing or you're out marketing. All of those things go into your cost, and of course time is our most valuable commodity, and unfortunately we can't buy more of that, so we have to learn how to work smarter, not harder. All right, so step one, you have to determine what your costs are. And I have a list here of some of the things. This is by no means an all-inclusive list. There are some things that are going to be on this list that apply to you. There may be some things on this list that don't apply to you. You may have some costs that aren't even listed on this list. This is just to get you thinking about what some of the costs are. So right now, get out a pen and paper, pause the video if you need to, and write down what are some of your costs of doing business. All right, so after we have determined what our costs are and we have written down what that actually a physical number that costs us, now we have to determine what are our billable units. Like I said earlier, time is our most precious commodity. It's the one equalizer. We all have the same amount of time in a day. Some of us work more, some of us work less. But time is something that you really have to take into consideration. Like I said before, I was spending tons of time on sessions and not making anything for it. So determine what is going to be your billable units. Is it going to be per hour? Is it going to be per session? I choose to do mine per session and per clients. Those are kind of my billable units that I use. After that, then we get into how we calculate your cost of doing business. And in just a minute, I'm going to pull up a worksheet and show you how easy that can be with this worksheet. Now you have to determine, after you figured out your actual cost, step 4 is determining your pricing strategy. We're not really going to get into a lot of that today. That's a whole nother workshop on different pricing structures. Are you going to be IPS? Are you going to be shoot and burn? Are you going to be some kind of hybrid? That is up to you. I, of course, have my personal opinions. I've been a little bit of everything, to be honest with you, and I know what has worked best for me and what has been most profitable for me. So that is something, unfortunately, I can't tell you what is going to work best for you. If you're interested, like I said, I do offer one-on-one mentoring where we can sit down and look at this together. But it's a personal decision you're going to have to make, and it's one that you're going to have to live with and feel comfortable with. All right, here we go. We are going to go through our worksheet together. We are going to put in some numbers. We're going to call our photographer Jill as just a sample to see how this worksheet works. Put in your own numbers, or if you want to put in mine just to make sure your worksheet is functioning correctly, you can do that. But let's get started on our cost of doing business worksheet. Okay, on our worksheet, the first thing you're going to notice is the title. Cost of doing business projected for future growth. Do not plan for today. Plan for 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. You have to know your goals, what you want to be where you want to be in your business. Do you want to eventually have a studio? Well, you have to start budgeting and saving for that now. When I decided that I knew photography was something I wanted to go to, I started saving, and it took me 5 years to save up to be able to get a studio that I liked. So make sure that you are projecting for future growth. Plan for future growth. Plan to be successful. Okay, so we have our person Jill, and in her area, let's say a good price for a studio that the size she needs would be $950 a month. So notice how the yearly automatically pops up for us. She wants to keep those furnishings and she wants to maintain that studio so that it is a nice quality. So let's say she is just going to budget $650 a year. So some of these columns you may know monthly, you may have yearly, so just type those in where you need them. All right, so photo equipment, maybe she wants to budget for a new lens every year, or maybe she wants to upgrade her camera, or maybe she wants to get studio lighting. So what is she going to budget to do these things? Well, you may not need a new camera body every year. I say every year that I'm not going to get a new lens, and I usually end up with a new lens or upgrading one that I have. Lighting can be expensive if you want good quality lighting. Again, remember, we are projected for future growth. You're not going to keep the same things you have as you go forward. So depending on where you are as a new photographer, your budget may be higher, your cost may be higher. Let's say Jill, she is just beginning, so she's going to want a new lens every year. Maybe she's going to want to upgrade some lighting. Let's put in a healthy $2,000 a year. Repair and maintenance. This hopefully is something, maybe with the repair and maintenance, you may not ever need this, but you want it in your budget. That way if something does happen, you have that built in so that you can either repair, or maybe you just want to go get your lenses cleaned. Let's put in 1,000. And as starting off, let's bump this up to 3,000 if you're just starting off. Studio samples. This can also include studio supplies, not samples. Pens, paper, envelopes, anything that you're going to need, maybe USB drives, CDs, however you choose to deliver your images to your clients. So all of this goes into maybe you thank you cards for your clients. Let's put a budget for, let's say, $150 a month. Client refreshments, drinks, snacks. Maybe this is something that you don't include right now. Doing newborn sessions sometimes takes 3-4 hours, so I always have refreshments on hand for my clients. Again, that may be something that you don't have in your cost right now, but it's something to think about for future growth. Props. Now this is a big one, especially if you're a newborn photographer. How much are you going to budget yourself every month or every year on props? Starting out, it may be more. You have to figure out what do you want to put in your costs. For a month, let's say Jill wants to do $100 a month for props. Subscriptions and software, that's anything like Photoshop, Shootproof, anything that you use that's either you subscribe to or it's a software program. Monthly, let's say Jill has a monthly cost of $75 for some of her stuff that she's using now. Web hosting and design. Are you going to get someone to design your website and keep up with that for you? Or are you going to do it for yourself? How much is it going to cost you to get your domain name? Is it going to cost a month, a year? Again, just you are going to have to answer these questions for yourself. Jill, she does not pay anyone to do hers for her at this point, but she wants to in the future. So let's go ahead and let's let's do $250 a month for our web hosting, domain, and upkeep. Phone and utilities. Now, you will need to talk to your CPA and get together with someone that knows the laws and rules for your state and where you are. I do know that most states allow you, if you have an in-home studio, you can write off a portion of your utilities. Your CPA may know more about that, so you get with them. Don't take any of my advice for this part. If you have a studio, of course, if you have your own phone lines, internet, electric bills, let's say Jill spends $95 a month on all that. Insurance. If you are a photographer and you are taking clients, you need insurance. Hopefully you will never have to use it, but you need it. So this is, of course, your liability insurance that covers if anything happens to your client, if anything happens to your equipment. I actually have a photographer friend who had her camera bag in her car and it got stolen. Luckily, she had insurance, so the insurance helped cover that. So you do need to get insurance. Just like your car, hopefully you never need it, but it's there if you do. So let's say Jill spends around $19 a month on her insurance. You can usually pick up insurance pretty cheaply. Just kind of do some shopping out there and see what you want that's going to fit in your budget. Travel, gas, and auto maintenance. Again, talk with your CPA. There's a portion of all this that you can write off on your taxes at the end of the year. So Jill here is going to spend $60 a month between travel, gas, and everything it takes to get to and from her sessions. Here is a big one. Education and training. Now, as a new photographer especially, you're going to want this to be probably your second highest cost, because you want to improve, and the only way to improve is to practice and, of course, get help from somebody who knows. So you need a good, healthy budget for education and training, and to actually train and get with someone who knows what they're doing, who will be able to help you and help your business grow. You're going to need to budget somewhere around $3,000. $3,500 is good. Now this also includes all of your online. If you do any online education through like Creative Live or another photographer's website, all of this goes into your training and education. Now, marketing, advertising, and branding. This is another one that's going to need to be pretty big, especially starting out. You want to be able to get your name out there. You want people to know you're ready for clients. You're going to have to figure out how you want to advertise, how you want to market yourself, and how you want to brand yourself. What do you want to be known for? So in the beginning, this is a little bit of trial and error, trying to figure out things. But you do need to make sure this is probably one of the biggest way you are going to grow your business. Your SEO also comes into that, so if you're going to pay someone to do your SEO for you to help keep you at the top of Google, that's going to need to go in your cost as well. So with Jill just starting out, she's going to make a budget, let's say, of $200, and for future growth, let's go to $250. So she knows what she's spending a year in advertising, marketing, and branding. Now, your association memberships, if you're in any networking groups, those usually cost money. PPA, anything that you're in that you would need to budget into that. Let's just say Jill's right now, she pays yearly and pays $750 a year for her memberships. Bookkeeping, if you hire a bookkeeper or you want to for future growth. A CPA, anything with legal, if you're paying someone to look at your contracts, anything like that, that goes over right here into this section. Let's say Jill spends $550. Now this one may or may not apply to you. Product and studio samples, if you plan on selling specific products, you're going to want to update those every year. In the beginning, maybe even sooner than a year, because as you get more experience, you are going to have better and better images, so you're definitely going to want to update those. So how much do you want to spend either a month or a year on product and studio samples? let's say Jill is going to sell items, so she wants to be able to spend $1,500 a year on samples and upgrades. It may even be higher than that starting out. Once you kind of get going, it may lower a little, but let's just start there. Now, if you decide that you want some kind of studio manager, you want to outsource your editing, anything like that, that you want to put here. In the beginning, of course, you're probably not going to have that, but again, we are projecting for future growth. That may be something you want to budget in. Jill right now, she's not going to add that in just yet, but maybe in another 3 to 5 years, she will come sit down and do it and change that. All right, so your net income and salary, what you want to bring home. What do you want to make? We talked about this a little earlier. If you were working any other job you would expect to get paid, photography is the same. All of this is just what it takes to run your business. You need to have what you want to make. If you didn't charge this, then you would be making nothing. You would be paying in all of this money here and making absolutely nothing. So, what do you want to make? You can either do it monthly, you can do it yearly. What would you feel comfortable with? And another thing about this, I know I hear a lot of photographers that say, oh, my husband works, this is just for fun. That's great. That's how I started off. God forbid something happened to your husband or his job. Would you be able to survive on your income that you put in here? When my husband got laid off in 2015, I was pregnant with my third kid. We had just bought a new house, and I was panicking because how are we going to, I just quit my job, how are we going to survive? So this is important. So let's say Jill wants to bring home $45,000. Oops, wrong, right here. Okay, so we've gone through and we've put in everything for our cost of doing business into our worksheet. Now we're ready for the scary part. All right, so now Jill has done all of her costs, and we now have what her total cost of doing business is. This number could be a little smaller or lower depending on what you put up here, but this is your cost of doing business. You have to bring this amount of money in to be a profitable, successful, sustainable business. So now we have to figure out, if you go back to the steps that we did in the beginning, you have to go through and figure out what is your billable unit. How do you want to charge to get to that number? Let's figure out how many weeks you want to work, first of all. Well, we know there's 52 weeks in a year, but do you want to work all 52 weeks? Normal person gets what, 2 to 4 weeks off depending on the job they have. So let's say, especially if you're a mom and your kids are off for spring break, Thanksgiving week, Christmas week, that's 4 weeks right there. What about summers? Do you want to have some time off in the summers with your kids? So figure out how many weeks you want to be off and how many weeks you want to work per year. Let's say Jill wants to work 45 weeks a year. So once we type that into our worksheet, it will tell us how much we need to make, how much Jill needs to make per week. So per week, Jill needs to bring in $1,789.73. Now, how many clients is Jill going to want realistically per week? Again, if she has kids, maybe she is a stay-at-home mom doing this. Maybe she can take 1 or 2 clients a week. Maybe she doesn't have kids at home and she wants to work and have, 5 clients a week. But realistically, what are you going to be able to do? What are you realistically going to be able to handle? Because remember, what goes into this, each client. If you are being a full service photographer, you may spend up to 30 hours a week or 30 hours per client through the pre-consultation, the design consultation, your sessions, editing, reveals. If you're shoot and burn, you may not spend that much time, but figure out how many realistic clients can you have in 1 week. Jill wants to offer her clients a little more service, so she wants to be able to just take on about 1.5 clients a week, which average she needs to make $1,193.16 per session. Now she is actually going to sell products to her clients. So PPA actually suggests that for your cost of goods be no more than 25% of your price. So when you're trying to figure out your pricing, you want to make sure that it's only, whatever you're buying is only 25% of your price. So let's put in 25%. So now our target average sell, this is what she needs to charge per client per session, either as a shoot and burn, or if she wants to be a IPS where she sells the products. We've said Jill wants to do that, so she knows her average sell needs to be $1,590.87. That's what every client that comes through her door needs to average, not necessarily. Now that we know that's not going to happen. Some clients are going to spend more, some clients are going to spend less, but on an average throughout the year, this is what average she needs to make per client. So now she knows. She knows exactly what she needs to make. There's no emotion involved. This is what Jill has to charge in order to get a business that is going to run, to make her money, to be sustainable, to bring in income for her and her family. There's no emotion. It's numbers. It's fact. So if clients aren't going to pay that, then they're not your client. And I know that's hard to think and that's hard to hear. And you may say, oh my gosh, I'm only charging $175 right now. How can I get to this price? You may say, oh, but my work's not that good. Then I challenge you. Set a date. Say a year from now, a year from today, you want to be charging what you need to charge. So that means over this next year, maybe you're not charging $1,590. Maybe you're charging $500. And over this next year, you save up that money. Maybe you have to get a part-time job to help you out. But you save and you work towards your goal. Maybe every 6 months you up your price just a little, so it's not quite as, shocking at the beginning. I will say, being in this business for almost 10 years now, it has taken me 10 years to work my way up. I wish I would have known what I know now. I would have started with these prices from the beginning. My work wasn't up to charging $1,500. But if I had known that, I would have worked harder in the beginning. I would have practiced more. I would have done more model calls. I would have worked my way up so that it wouldn't have taken me 10 years to get where I need to be. So I challenge you. Find what's going to work for you. Find your cost of doing business. If your quality is not up to your pricing standards, if you don't feel comfortable saying, hey, I've only been doing this 2 months, I can't charge $1,500 just yet, set a date. When are you going to start charging $1,500? When are you going to start making your business profitable and sustainable? All right, so there we have it. You know how much you need to charge now. You know your cost of doing business. Now get out there and do it. I would love to hear how you're doing. Keep up with me. I want to keep up with you. Like I said, I'd love to cheer each other on. Let me know about your successes. Let me know what you struggle with. I'd love to help. So let me know how I can help. Let's do this together and let's celebrate together.